I'm Anthony Elmore, President and Founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. We at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association practice the Buddhist teachings as taught by the 13th century Japanese Buddhist sage Nichiren Shonin. Now, the word Nichiren means sun lotus and Shonin means priest. Now, we are the Black Buddhist Voice of America. We are cultural and not racial. We are like a black radio station. Black people, if you are looking for a higher vision, an inspiration, a motivation, a faith that you have the power to better your life, then we present to you not Buddhism in the traditional sense. As it relates to Asians, we bring to you the Lotus Sutra that is about your life, your vision, your dream. My lecture today is introducing the Lotus Sutra. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Lotus Sutra, or the highest teachings of the Buddha, is your everyday life. It has nothing to do with some Asian on a mountain meditating. Actually, it's really not even about meditating, but the Lotus Sutra is really about the law of cause and effect. Now, what this Go-Show does, that it gives us an understanding of the Lotus Sutra. Now, these are the writers of Nichiren Shonin as he explains the Lotus Sutra. Now, in my case, I learned Buddhism from Japanese Buddhist sects, the SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, and Nichiren Shu. What I found was that the Japanese Nichiren sects teachings run counter to the Go-Show and the Lotus Sutra. You see, let me give you an example of this. Now, it says the truth had lies and affairs of this world, and the Golden Light Sutra states to have a profound knowledge of this world is accept Buddhism. Now, I used to ask the question, why am I, as a black man, only learning so much Japanese culture? Why isn't Buddhism explained from the standpoint of our black history, our black culture, and our black language? You know, in Memphis, Tennessee, there's a dominant black population. I'm not against anybody, but in our culture and in our neighborhood, we should be able to express Buddhism according to our history, our culture, and our language. But what we're finding, that the Japanese, when they teach Buddhism, they bring some Japanese priest here, and he teach Buddhism according to their history, their culture, their language, and they exclude all black Buddhist history, culture, and language of Buddhism. Now, in fact, I started in Zen Buddhism in 1970, and I had no idea that Zen Buddhism was founded by a black man from southern India by the name of Buddha. In 1974, when I joined the Buddhist sect, it was called NSA, or Nichiren Shoshu America. Now, I learned the entire story of the Nichiren sect called Nichiren Shoshu, and how they were partners then with the Buddhist organization called the Soka Gakkai. I read everything about Nichiren Shoshu, and I read everything about the Soka Gakkai that later became known today as the SGI. Now, back in the day, we used to have these grand cultural festivals in NSA. They were called the NSA Cultural Festivals. And I went to festivals in Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. What was missing from these festivals was black history. We black people participated in the festivals, but they never made black Buddhist history inclusive. In fact, in 1986, SGI leader Daisaki Keita introduced a book called The Living Buddha. Now, this was a fictional interpretive biography of the life of the Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha. Now, in the book, this is what Ikeda writes in his interpretive philosophy. He wrote, "Finally, I do not think it is possible to determine for certain the racial origin of Shakyamuni, who lived so many centuries ago. It cannot be denied in ways of thinking associated with Buddhism, there are characteristics that strongly suggest some connection with Indo-Aryan people and their culture. Whatever the racial origin of their founder, there is no doubt that Buddhism grew up in an Indo-Aryan cultural spirit," unquote. Now, this was very troubling to me because Daisaki Ikeda broke my heart, because science teaches us that the Indus Valley civilization was an all-black civilization. From the Indus Valley emerged a black empire called the Magadha Empire, founded by a black man by the name of Su Naga. What I came to learn was the Japanese sects, SGI, Nichiren Shoshu and Nichiren Shu, all teach Buddhism that extricate all black history, language, and culture from the Buddhist teachings. Now, get a load of this. In 752 AD, this is the time they set up the Buddhist platform of Japan. And what is very clear is that the Buddhist platform was based on black Buddhist history, and that the cosmic Buddha, the image of the Buddha that was at Todaji Temple, that's in the ancient capital of Nara, Japan. This is the largest indoor Buddha statue in the world. It's made out of bronze and gold. And Emperor Shomu of Japan in 752 AD made this based on a black Buddha. Now, what happened was, or what we must understand, is that Todaji Temple, where this black image of the Buddha is found, this is a UNESCO site. This is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization site. Imagine the largest indoor Buddha statue in the world made of bronze and gold. Now, what was troubling is that I asked Reverend Murata, he was the Nichiren Shoshu chief priest in Washington, D.C. I asked him about it, and he says, "I don't deal in racism." Then I had a priest by the name of Shinji Iwaki. I asked Reverend Shinji Iwaki about it, and this priest told me he didn't know anything about it. Now, can you imagine the largest indoor statue Buddhist indoor statue in the world that talks about the Buddha that was the foundation of Buddhism in Japan? And this Japanese priest told me he don't know anything about it. This dude would look you right into the eyes and tell you a lie. Now, in the Gosho again, the Gift of Rights reads, quote, Nichiren quotes, "To have a profound knowledge of this world is itself Buddhism." Now, if this priest do not have a simple knowledge of this world, how in the hell can he teach you Buddhism? Now, this is what the Gift of Rights says again. The 6th volume of the Lotus Sutra reads, quote, "No worldly affairs of life or work are ever contrary to the true reality." He reveals their meaning and pointed out that although the first 2 sutras are profound, since their meaning is still shallow and fails to approach that of the Lotus Sutra, they relate to secular matters in terms of Buddhism, whereas the Lotus Sutra explains that in the end, secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the way the Japanese teach Buddhism, or the way they teach us according to Buddhism and not according to the Lotus Sutra. See, the essence of the Lotus Sutra in that it explains that secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. Now, In explaining the Lotus Sutra, please understand that the Buddhism we practice, or the Lotus Sutra explains the secular matters, are the entirety of Buddhism. Now, in reference to the Lotus Sutra, the essence of the Lotus Sutra is in the title. Now, there's a Go show. It's called Thus I Heard. And this reads, quote, "Those who chant Myoho Renge Kyo, the title of the Lotus Sutra, even without understanding its meaning, realize not only the heart of the Lotus Sutra, but also the main chord or the essential principle of the Buddha's lifetime teachings." Now, he goes on further. He says, "A crown prince who is only 1, 2, or 3 years old will, when he ascends to the throne, reign over the empire and be obeyed by the imperial regent and ministers, although he is presently unaware of this. A baby who has no conscious understanding, but taking the mother's breast, grows naturally." Unquote. You see, a baby, he don't understand about milk, but you put the titty up there, the baby gonna suck that milk, and it's the same thing with the Lotus Sutra. You see, in a natural way, we who embrace the Lotus Sutra will come to understand the profound teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni, or the Lotus Sutra. Now, let me put this in a secular way so that you can understand. Now, the teachings of Buddhism in relationship to the Lotus Sutra. You see, the Lotus Sutra teaches us that all phenomena is a manifestation of Myoho Renge Kyo. Now, Myoho Renge Kyo is the title of the Lotus Sutra, and the essence of the Lotus Sutra is in the title. If you understand the title, then you can understand the whole Lotus Sutra. Now, there exists no phenomena outside of Myoho Renge Kyo or the Lotus Sutra. Now, let us bring this explanation in a secular realm. What I want you to do first, I want you to listen to a young President Barack Obama. Now, this is in 1995. Now, Barack Obama, a young black man, and he said these words. He says, being black meant the knowledge of your powerlessness and your own defeat. He also says, and final irony, if you refuse this defeat and lash out at your captors, they have a name for that too. A name that can cage you just as good, like paranoid, militant, violent, or nigger. Now, let us listen to young President Barack Obama in his own words, and we're going to use this to show how he changed or he raised his life condition up from 1995 to 9 years later to 2004. Let's listen to Barack Obama.
My presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to school in a tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant to the British. But my grandfather had larger dreams for his son. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America, that shone as a beacon of freedom and opportunity to so many who had come before. While studying here, my father met my mother. She was born in a town on the other side of the world, in Kansas. Her father worked on oil rigs and farms through most of the Depression. The day after Pearl Harbor, my grandfather signed up for duty, joined Patton's army, marched across Europe. Back home, my grandmother raised a baby and went to work on a bomber assembly line. After the war, they studied on the GI Bill. bought a house through FHA, and later moved west, all the way to Hawaii in search of opportunity. And they too had big dreams for their daughter. A common dream born of two continents. My parents shared not only an improbable love, they shared an abiding faith in the possibilities of this nation. They would give me an African name, Barak, or Blessed, believing that in a tolerant America, your name is no barrier to success. They imagined me going to the best schools in the land, even though they weren't rich, because in a generous America, you don't have to be rich to achieve your potential. They're both passed away now. And yet I know that on this night, they look down on me with great pride. They stand here, and I stand here today, grateful for the diversity of my heritage, aware that my parents' dreams live on in my two precious daughters. I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible. Tonight, we gather to affirm the greatness of our nation. Not because of the height of our skyscrapers, or the power of our military, or the size of our economy. Our pride is based on a very simple premise, summed up in a declaration made over 200 years ago. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the true genius of America. A faith in simple dreams, an insistence on small miracles, that we can tuck in our children at night and know that they are fed and clothed and safe from harm. That we can say what we think, write what we think without hearing a sudden knock on the door. That we can have an idea and start our own business without paying a bribe. It's the hope of slaves sitting around a fire singing freedom songs. The hope of immigrants setting out for distant shores. The hope of a young naval lieutenant bravely patrolling the Mekong Delta. The hope of a mill worker's son who dares to defy the odds. The hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too.
What we show you in President Obama's 2004 speech is the law of cause and effect, or how hope and inspiration can affect us. See, the Lotus Sutra is the ultimate cause of developing your Buddha nature, or your highest life condition. I, Anthony Elmore, who has dedicated his life to teaching the correct teachings, which is the Lotus Sutra, is faced with the worst backlash from black people who are angry that a black man dares to make Buddhism inclusive of our black culture, history, and language. It does not matter that we come with archaeological, anthropological, literary science, genetic science, or even words of the President of the United States of America. We have to fight to teach the Lotus Sutra that is only about the law of cause and effect. It is Buddhism that is the religion, but it is only the Lotus Sutra, a Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That means awakening to the unfathomable law of cause and effect teachings. Black people, if you are looking for a higher vision, an inspiration, a motivation, a faith that you have the power to better your life, then we present to you not Buddhism in the traditional sense. As it relates to Asians, we bring to you the Lotus Sutra that is about your life, your vision, your dreams,